He has served as chairman of the board for Sit-Along, and he currently serves as chairman of the board and advisory committee for Innovative Road Solutions, as well as a board member of Paytola, which is in San Francisco, California. He has a career spanning 45 years. Is that true?
Close.
Yeah. With 4 state departments of transportation, including Illinois, Virginia, Utah, and Florida. The latter 3 as assistant secretary. His career in the private sector included consulting with various public transportation and toll agencies, and he also served 12 years as executive director of Orlando Orange County Expressway, or CFX. He is past president of IBTTA, and fun fact here is we have 2 PhD members up here on the stage, as well as 2 past presidents of IBTTA, and I think 3 members that have at least advanced degrees. So, pretty smart group up here. I'm just trying to balance it out. He is an adjunct faculty member at the School of Public Policy at UCF. He's been a guest lecturer at the University of Michigan, George Mason University, and the University of Virginia. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and an MBA from the University of Illinois, and his PhD is from Virginia Commonwealth. He is a Florida PE, as well as Virginia, Utah, and Illinois. And with that, I'll let Dr. Worrall get going.
Okay, I don't know where you got that resume, but the one I sent in was 1 paragraph long. You know, I almost want to throw these notes away and start all over after that first presentation. It's really got me to thinking, but I want to say 4 things before I start the presentation. Seniors, safety, business survival, and human interface with the machine, okay? So seniors, of course, one like me, we're getting to the point where a lot of us, right? We're all starting to say, hey, wouldn't it be great to get in the car and say, take me to the drugstore, huh? Safely, right? My eyes got bad, so I had both cataracts changed. Now I can see you all. But before, I got up here and it's been a blur. So I was driving then, by the way. Safety is a huge, huge issue. In 1999, when I was working with the ITSA, Intelligent Transportation Society of America, we did a short autonomous, quote, vehicle demonstration in San Diego, and had sensors in the lane, and for about 15 miles we had it set up, and it was really interesting. You know, we're in this Buick LeSabres, and we're driving down the road, and the guy would hands off the wheel, hands off the brakes, hands off the gas, etc. Flick the turn signal, and it would go out of the platoon. Platoon would close up, flick the signal, come in behind the platoon. Okay, so we were close to a lot of what we thought was autonomous vehicular transportation. The result of that was that federal government and many state governments absolutely closed ranks and said, this is not for us. We don't want to do this. But I'll tell you what did happen. All the automobile manufacturers looked at that and said, that's the future. And so they went to work. And a lot of tech firms like Google and others have been doing a great deal of work with this same subject. So they haven't stood still. So the manufacturer's business survival is going to be the key for selling automobiles is AV. And electric vehicles, by the way, that's another subject. But safety is a very big issue. Human interface with the machine, two points here real quick, and then I'm going to give my presentation. One is, think of yourself driving down the road, and this vehicle is behind you, 20 feet away from your rear end, doing 60 miles an hour. Doesn't make you happy, right? But he's an autonomous vehicle. He's safe. Does that make you feel better? I mean, what do you do? How do you react, right? So the vehicle relationship between the man and machine, it takes place out in the traffic. Very dangerous place for these things to start taking place. Second human interface is in the vehicle. So the Google people, the engineers, were asked by the management, while back when they were developing AV. So how are we going to interface with the human in the vehicle? The engineer's response was, take out the steering wheel, take out the brakes, take out all the instrumentation, one red button for shutting things down. That's it. That's the human interface. They said, well, we can't do that. They said that you can't devise a system that can interface with the human with all the random reactions you might get from a human. So where are we at now? So the announcement by General Motors at level 4 for the Chevrolet Bolt, which by the way is supposed to be coming out in 2019, that's next year, has no steering wheel, et cetera, right? So human interface, safety, business survival, and seniors. Just keep those things in your mind, okay? So what I put together here is a presentation on AV and how I imagine its effects might be on travel in the U.S. This is a thought piece. It's not a projection. Don't get your salt shakers out. You're going to see some numbers, but don't take them home as if they're gospel. Take them home and look at them and say, well, should this be less or more, or how could we change that, right? So it's a thought piece. So, first of all, what is AV? We get in this discussion of, well, see somebody in the hall and say, well, AV is here. And somebody else says, AV won't be here for 30 years, right? I mean, how many of us have had that discussion? But is that relevant at all? We haven't even really described, when we say AV, what do we mean? AV at level 1, obviously is here, it's commercially available, right? AV level 5 is not here. Is it really relevant to have that kind of discussion? So the first thing is, we have to talk about what is AV. And then what are some of the factors that are going to affect this AV adoption rate? And I think it's really important to think about that. When will AV be sufficient in presence to require modifications in our transportation policies and our designs? And one other thought occurred to me as Adrian was talking, in our laws. By the way, just a little side note anecdote. I saw on the internet the other day that some guy was DUI, right? But he was in his level 4 car, well, his Tesla. And he said, hey, it's okay. I was under automatic control. Well, see, there are going to be effects. Obviously, that didn't stick, right? But there are going to be issues like that in the future, right? So, when does a human give up and the machine take over? So, so laws are important in this discussion too. And then what kinds of changes may be necessary, and what kinds of things do we need to think about when it comes to infrastructure for us and the transportation business, but also insurance, policy, law, etc. And should we be doing something now? Or are we just going to wait until, quote, AV gets here? So let's talk about what it is. So level 0, no AV, okay? This is National Transit. By the way, it's not NHTSA, you know that. But this is their definition of the 5 levels, 1 through 5 levels of AV. The first being driver assistance, cruise speed control, and lane position. Got it today, right? You go buy it commercially. Stops the vehicle, somebody in front, etc., right? We've seen those ads. Level 2, occasional AV. Vehicle controls in some situations, and I think of it, I wrote down limited access, because I think of it in terms of get out on the turnpike, you put the cruise control on, you take your feet off the gas, and this thing drives you at 70 and won't get any closer than 40 feet in the car in front of you or whatever, and stays between the lines. Which, by the way, another little side note, I saw a video of one of these vehicles working based on the lines, and when you come to a ramp, right, you have a little change in the striping. Well, this vehicle just went right off the ramp, right? So you have some issues to think about. So limited AV then is vehicle control. That is, it's going to take over control of the vehicle until the human needs to take over. Now remember my discussion about Google, where they said, take the wheels out, we can't be interfacing with the human, right? Most everyone in the manufacturing community now has agreed that we're going to skip level 3. We're not going to try to even do it. Probably be more difficult than if we just went to level 4. And so now you're hearing General Motors say level 4 already. And then level 5, where we all seem to think about AV, is full AV, all conditions, no driver necessary. I will just offer this opinion that in some places, some locations, some environments, think about limo downtown here in Orlando. You know, you've got a controlled environment and it's the same circle you go every day, right? I can see that being level 5 AV, right? But I can't see it being level 5 AV drive off in a snowstorm in the middle of New Hampshire in the mountains, right? I can't see that one. So level 5 may mean that it's level 5 for certain environmental conditions and locations. That's just my thought. Okay, so safety. My opinion, safety is going to be the wind in the sails. When OnStar came out, and this well back again, and I was with Intelligent Transportation Society of America, we did a survey of the reasons that people would adopt OnStar or OnStar-like capabilities. Our mind at the time was on navigation. We thought, wow, you know, this is cool, navigation, tell it to go wherever, and it'll tell you how to get there. And so we thought, that's why everybody is getting this. The number one reason by far, when we did the survey, was safety. People wanted to be able to hit that button when they had feeling a heart attack, or they had an accident. It was safety. It had nothing to do with the navigation. That was an ancillary nice thing. But the main reason we thought was navigation. The survey said safety. Well, I think safety is going to be a really large issue in the adoption of AV. The emergency stopping, the theft and vehicle location, all that stuff is good, but I think it's going to be the saving lives. I think it's going to be the children and grandchildren saving the lives. Prime driver for AV is also going to be manufacturers. The sale of vehicles. And you just think about this. I'm going to show you a slide here in a minute that gives you some of the data about the fleet and how often it turns over. And I'll tell you my two vehicles, and it's not because I can't afford better vehicles, okay? I've got a 2004 Toyota Highlander with 160,000 miles on it, and it drives like a dream, get good gas mileage. I love that car. It's got dents, so I don't care who else did it. I love that car, right? I'm going to keep it till the wheels fall off. The other car is a 2013 Lexus, which has got 80,000 miles on it. It's still like a brand new car, so I have no visions of changing either one of those cars out, right? So it's going to take a while for these to turn out. What's happened? We've made cars better. If you were around when I was in the 60s and 70s, you got a new car every 3 years because the door handle fell off, right? They weren't made well. That's not the case today. All the manufacturers make the cars very well and for the long life. So if you really don't care about having the newest and nicest, then you're going to have a vehicle for a long time. That means that it's harder and harder to sell the cars. And one of the key elements of selling the car are those accessories that are glitzy, like the navigation system. Remember the one that popped up in the middle, another car I gave to my son was my G35 because I kept getting tickets. But anyway, it had a GPS that popped up in the middle, right? And so, it was really a sexy thing, and that was one of the reasons you bought that car, because it popped right up there and tell you where to go and all that stuff, right? So, AV, I think, is going to be one of those accessories, but not a nicety like navigation. It's going to be a necessity like safety for the old guys who can't see, gals, etc. Okay, so there's ultimately no reason for an owner really to upgrade except on a long cycle. Here's some data. 263.6 million U.S. light-duty vehicular fleet. 17.7 million light-duty sales per year. Fleet turnover then is approximately every 14 years. Well, that's pretty long. I'll bet if you looked at that in the 1970s, it would have been 14 years. No way, right? So it's a market-driven adoption, not a policy-driven adoption. So when we think about General Motors going through its bankruptcy and deleting a number of models, when you think about Volvo saying, well, we're just not going to have any more gasoline vehicles after, what is it, 2025 or some such date. That means no more gasoline engines involved, right? Moving to electric, moving to other alternatives. A lot of things are happening, major things are happening in the manufacturing business. They're doing it to survive. They want to make the next cycle. I don't know whether any of you have ever seen the TV series about Ford and Dodge in the early days of the automobile and how they did things to survive, like the hydraulic braking and, oh, I got this and I got that, just to survive, okay? It's a survival business. It's more of a survival business now than it's ever been. And there's going to be less of them around in the future. So AV is going to be a big player here. I think that's why GM and Ford have seen they have to do something. They see Tesla out here saying, well, we're going to be fully autonomous, right? Okay, so we need to be prepared to respond to these effects of AV. And I just pulled a number out of the air. When 30% of the fleet reaches a certain AV level, that's my hypothesis here, okay? Now, if you think about level 4 vehicles and introduction of those next year, it's a beginning introduction of those next year. And if it is about survival, and if it is about safety, and if it does move quicker than we think about adopting policies and waiting for the federal government to tell us what our policies should be, et cetera, et cetera. If it is that, it may move very quickly. But the question is, if we've got a 14-year turnover, the last slide, then how long is it going to take us from introduction to 30% level? And I picked 30% level because I'm saying 1 out of 3 vehicles, and me as a regular driver of a non-AV, 1 out of 3 vehicles I'm going to have to deal with. Okay? That means we have to do something with infrastructure to separate them. We have to do something with the laws and the policies, et cetera, right? So the transportation community's got to respond when we get at least to 30%, maybe before that. So I just picked it out of the air. AV capabilities will be standard rather than accessories. We're going to incorporate them into the vehicles just like nav systems, and integral to the vehicle's manufacture. Again, the wind in the sails of adoption, I think, is going to be safety. And regulation which slows adoption cannot be seen to slow improvements in safety. And you think about that. So General Motors said, okay, we're going to do it next year. They send all the stuff up to the feds and they say, hey, you know, we need some rules on level 4 by next year. And the feds say, well, we'll get around to it in 2025. And the children and grandchildren, our children and grandchildren are killed. We're not going to be happy with that politically. So I'm telling you, it's going to be the manufacturing and not the regulation pace that's going to set the pace of this adoption. So this is what, this is where you need a grain of salt, okay? It's big grain of salt, okay? So taking some data that's out there, we've got driver assistance now. The occasional AV, this is from my gleaning through some research and also gleaning through some articles about AV as to when it's going to come about. And when I say come about, I mean 30% level, okay? So occasional AV comes out in 2022. I'm going to show you on the next slide how I got here. Limited AV 2025. I think we're going to skip it. And full AV level 4 is going to be 2030. Full AV all conditions. I don't think it's going to be 2040. I don't think it's ever going to be myself after some further research. But I think they're going to be level 5 for certain conditions relatively soon, maybe even as soon as to level 4. Okay, let me show you how I got here and what I'm thinking. So, if you take the original introduction and you figure the 14-year turnover to get to the 30%, that's about a 5-year period. So if we get the introduction of level 4 in 2019, like GM says, it'll be 5 years out when we get to level 4. So instead of saying 2030 here, I really should be saying 2026. It's quicker than when I wrote the presentation. I wrote the presentation about 3 weeks ago, sent it off to Brady, data kept coming. It changed in that 3 weeks. Okay? So now I wouldn't say 2030. Now I would say 2025 or 2026, just because of that cycle. Okay? What I wanted to show you here is we need to start thinking about how's it going to affect us. Well, think about signs and striping, okay? Driver assistance level, it's a very low impact. We don't really have to do too much there. Lane usage, not much impact. Regulation, a little bit. You need to be thinking about regulation even for driver assistance. Litigation, maybe a little bit. Insurance, maybe a little bit. Occasional AV, and I don't think we're probably going to be dealing with that very long. I think we'll go straight to level 4. But occasional AV, you remember what the level stood for, right? Let's go back just for a second, if I can. Okay, so occasional AV is level vehicle controls in some situations and limited access, some situations. Level 3 is you're going to do AV, but you're going to have a person in the car to take over. And level 4 is where the car takes over, okay? Yeah, I got it. So, now, you can see that when we get to limited AV, you start getting some highs in here. And when you get to level 4, look at those highs. All the way across, except this is my opinion, it could be different than this, is just my thinking, that it would be everything except the litigation level. You get a high impact on signs and striping, high impact on lane usage, high impact on regulations, high impact on insurance. High impact on insurance. General Motors introduces level 4 in 2019. We're saying, from this data, 5 years after that, 2026, we got 30% of the people doing level 4. Which, by the way, you don't necessarily have to have this all in the vehicle at the time of manufacture. Somebody's going to come along with a retro kit, right? Take my 2013 Lexus and turn it into a whatever, right? Somebody's going to do that because it's not immediately required to be connected to the vehicle. It's a separate ancillary electronic. So, at any rate, you see that you're going to start to get some high impacts here in 2026. Forget that 2030, I changed that. So it's, a lot of impacts starting to happen. Well, if you think about our process for developing plans, and doing design, and buying a right-of-way, and putting in an extra lane, and construction, yada, 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 okay? Which used to be 12 years. I hope it's shorter now. But if it's still 12 years, we got a little problem. We're kind of behind the 8 ball here. If we haven't started now, we should get really with it. One of the areas of major significance in my mind is the signing and striping. Because you have the communication of the vehicle with the roadside and vice versa, right? But you also have, for example, think of this. You come up to a sign, you read the sign.